Hello everyone, and welcome to B-Movie Enema the series. I'm Nurse Disembody, and I help the B-Movie proctologist Jeff Arbuckle, who seems to be really confused about something, and it's kind of bothering me. He's been like this for the last couple hours.
I just can't figure this out. I'm looking at Grey's Anatomy for like the situation that we got the other day, but I just can't make heads or tails over what the problem is.
Oh no, this sounds serious. What is it that you're trying to figure out?
Well, I'm trying to figure out this specific syndrome, but I mean, like, look at this. We've got a wedding.
What?
And then there's this guy in a neck brace. And then Seattle fire.
But that's... Okay. Can you hold the book up for me?
What's the problem? It's Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, the coloring book from the TV show Grey's Anatomy.
Huh.
Whoa, okay, so question.
Yeah?
How many times have you referred to that book to help our patients?
Round number?
How many times, Jeff?
87 times?
Oh my god, this is not good.
Don't worry about it. Let's talk about this week's movie instead.
I think we better talk about getting a lawyer.
It's cool, don't worry. Instead, let's talk about Ozploitation. So Ozploitation is kind of a favorite thing of mine. Now, before Aussies hit it big over here with the likes of Mad Max and Crocodile Dundee and Yahoo Serious, Australia was kind of cranking out low and mid-range budget comedies, action movies, and horror on a fairly regular basis since the early 70s. Now, Ozploitation is really just a smaller part of a larger concept in the Australian film industry. Now, in the 70s, around the same time that you can start finding the beginnings of Ozploitation boom, you had what was called the Australian New Wave. And this was a rebound of sorts from the Australian film industry slowing after World War II and more or less becoming non-existent by the 60s. Now, before the close of the 60s, the Australian government stepped in to rescue it. And they started giving out grants so that the government could help with training filmmakers. And over the next 15 years or so, Australia made more films than the American film industry. But what's Ozploitation? Well, that was mostly horror, comedy, sex, and action films made in Australia. And this came along with the R rating in the country. However, Ozploitation was not a term that was concurrent with that era that the films were coming out in. Now, some Australian guy didn't just say, "Oi, exploitation, Ozploitation is what we do."
You really nailed that Australian accent.
Thank you. No, the term Ozploitation came along with the documentary from 2008 called Not Quite Hollywood that coined the term in the documentary's own subtitle, The Wild Untold Story of Ozploitation. Now, there was a term called Aussiesploitation from Quentin Tarantino, but that was basically shortened by the documentary's director, Mark Hartley. So yeah, with the R rating came the opportunity to start cranking out these much more violent, much more erotic, and much more over-the-top and raunchy flicks. This week's movie falls right into this era of the Australian New Wave, Alison's Birthday. Now, Alison's Birthday is about young Alison Findlay, played by Joanne Samuel, who is best known for being the on-screen wife of Mel Gibson in Mad Max in the original 1979 action flick. In this, Alison is going to get a very unwelcome present for her 19th birthday. Now, Alison's Birthday was directed by Ian Coughlan, who passed away in 2001. This was his only film that he ever made. In fact, while everything before this he directed were episodes of soap operas and TV movies, this movie was the last thing he directed, period. He then spent the rest of his life as a writer, but again, mostly teleplays. What's kind of neat is that Alison's Birthday is an example of a singular vision, as Coughlin is also the writer as well as the director. Alright, so I think we should probably hop into Alison's Birthday. What do you think, Nurse?
Yeah, sorry, I just got off the phone. We have an appointment with the law firm of Warren and Piper and Associates in just a little bit.
For what?
The gross amounts of malpractice you've likely undertaken?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Jeff.
And see, what's this? Is this like a consultation or something for surgery or something? What is this?
Ugh. I really don't think you understand the severity of the situation and why we have to call that law office. You've been using a coloring book to treat patients.
Only some of the patients.
You said you referred to the book 87 times.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's not totally a 1-to-1 ratio of looking at the Grey's Anatomy book.
Grey's Anatomy coloring book.
Tomato. Look, I looked at it 87 times for answers, but I didn't use it every time.
Okay, then how many times did you treat a patient after looking directly at the book if it's less than 87?
Let me think on that.
Jeff, this is really important.
Let me think about it. Now, meanwhile, the movie opened with a scene that I'm positive happens across the globe in high school and middle school girls' sleepovers everywhere, mucking with the dead. Yes, Alison and her friends are playing with what appears to be a modular Ouija board, or spirit board if you're on a ghost hunting show that can't use a trademark name. Anyway, the letters, numbers, and the yes and no items you'd normally see on a Ouija board look more like stones or tiles, like a Scrabble game. But Alison is warned to get away from some people before her 19th birthday by what seems to be the spirit of her dead father or something who possessed one of her friends. Now, when the bad spirits come looking for him, it creates a scenario in which a bookcase falls onto Alison's friend and kills her.
Seriously, should we be bothering with a movie while we're dealing with some pretty serious issues with our practice?
That's fine.
I'm pretty sure it's not. We're going to get asked how often you use that book to treat patients. So, how many times of the 87 have you directly used it?
79 times?
Jesus Christ.
Now, as I previously mentioned, Alison is played by Joanne Samuel. Almost everyone in the world would best recognize her as Ms. Bingle in the Wiggles movie. Nah, I'm fucking with you. She was the wife of the titular character, Mad Max. Now, the deaths of her and their child lead Max down the path of revenge and then a legendary warrior of the road. So yeah, Alison gets a warning to stay away from her family for her 19th birthday. Now, her parents were never known to her because they died when she was really little. There's a transition of nearly 3 years when Alison has a job and a boyfriend and things seem to be pretty shipshape. But her family is coming together coincidentally right around her birthday. Her Aunt Jenny even leans in a bit to say that this might be the last time everyone still living in the family will get together or something or another. So she goes against her original wishes to not take time off and then travel out there and do all that stuff for a birthday that she doesn't really care that much about, as well as having that warning from her supposedly dead father and what have you. No, the first sign that things may be weird is that her aunt and uncle have a tiny replica of Stonehenge in their backyard. But don't worry, the guy who lived there before Alison's Aunt Jenny and Uncle Dean just so happened to fancy himself an amateur astronomer or something. So, no funny business there whatsoever. But I do have to admit I am a little curious as to why this is all new to Alison. Is this a new place that Uncle Dean and Aunt Jenny has moved into? Has Alison never in like the 18 years leading up to this never been here or go into the backyard? I don't know. Nurse Steve, what do you think?
I think we're pretty screwed if you don't take these concerns really seriously.
See, Nurse, you're getting way too worried. Have we ever gotten any complaints over the B-Movie proctology I've done before?
Well, no.
See? And hey, look, I have this poster of the digestive tract, I've got a diploma, and I even have this nice little doctor's coat. We're legit around here.
Will you at least talk to the lawyer, just in case, for me?
Maybe, but I can't really promise you anything. I can promise that we are going back into the movie. So let's cue up that second act of Alison's birthday.
So, as Nurse Disembody mentioned to me when she called us, you referred to a non-medical book to help some of your patients. Is that right?
Yeah.
And that this book is actually a, how should I say this, a coloring book?
Yeah. This Grey's Anatomy coloring book. You see, I was told that I needed to get myself a copy of Grey's Anatomy, you know, for, well, butt anatomy and stuff.
Sure. And you got yourself the coloring book instead.
Well, I mean, it does say it right here on the cover.
Grey's Anatomy. Right.
So now you understand my confusion.
It never occurred to you that the book was giving you no actual medical knowledge?
No, I can't say that it did.
And you used it 79 times in final conclusions for treatment with your patients.
Yeah, yes.
So you do see the reason for concern, right?
Boy, do I. Now, Alison is up to her neck with some weird supernatural shenanigans.
That's not what I'm...
As the big party for Alison approaches fast, I mean, she's still spending time with her boyfriend, Pete. And she's invited him to her party, which was meant by Uncle Dean and Aunt Jenny to be a family-only affair, you see. And so this offends them greatly. But Jenny says that she's got plans for the boyfriend to get him out of the way. Oh, and I should mention that Alison has a weirdo, super old grandma. Now, on top of all of that, she's starting to get some spooky dreams. Now, she dreams of these occultists performing a ceremony in which this spirit or demon or, I don't know, something called Myrna is possessing a member of this congregation. It's all very spooky stuff. So Alison's starting to also succumb to a seeming illness that has obviously been brought on by nightly tonics that Aunt Jenny prepares for her every night. And naturally, this is a ploy for Dean and Jenny to get Alison in a controlled environment and to keep Pete away. But you know what? Pete doesn't quit. He tries to get in touch with the doctor who diagnosed Alison for having exhaustion and needing to stay on bed rest. Of course, he's nowhere to be found in any listing anywhere. So Pete keeps at it though. Now, Pete's played by Lou Brown. Now, Brown's hardly been in much, but having only 16 credits. He did have a credit in 2018, so apparently he is still around. Aunt Jenny is played by Bunny Brooke. She only did 2 movies in her career, this and 1979's Dawn, but she did quite a bit on TV. She died in 2000 at the age of 80 from bowel and liver cancer from heavy smoking and drinking. Oh, hey, look, bowels. I probably do stuff with them. Now, Uncle Dean is played by John Bluthal. Now, Bluthal died in 2018, but had quite a few credits to his name, and interesting ones too. He was in The Fifth Element and Dark City. His voice was given to a goblin in Labyrinth. He was in the Beatles' Help, but most everyone is going to remember him for one thing. If you've ever seen Superman 3, he was the salesman at the Leaning Tower of Pisa that first gets upset with Dickhead Superman for straightening the tower. He then gets pissed again at the end when good guy Superman comes along and leans on it and pushes it over again.
Is he like this often?
He goes through this several times, yeah.
He really has no idea what's so bad about using the Grey's Anatomy coloring book as a guide, does he? None.
No, the dummy is blissfully unaware that he's done anything wrong at all.
Eureka! If anyone sues, we'll just say...
Incompetent!
Yes! But no also. We'll say that he's not truly aware of his actions because he is clinically insane.
Alright, so let's get into our final act of Allison's birthday to see how she gets out of this nightmarish jam.
Okay, so... while there have not been any complaints so far, I don't see any reason to mention anything to anyone. That said, I can say that the law firm of Warren and Piper and Associates is happy to remain on retainer.
Oh, I bet. And how much will that set us back?
I don't know. Probably like $5,000.
Yikes!
Trust us. You'll be glad you have us. Now I need to go to another meeting with a client. If anyone contacts you about this, just refer them to us.
Jeez. Thanks.
So here we are at the end of Allison's birthday. Now Aunt Jenny and Uncle Dean are able to get Pete arrested, and he's forced to do some research by contacting a spooky chick he knew who knows some occult stuff. But then he looks at some stuff in the library and then goes to a hospital to get answers. Now Allison was born at exactly 7 p.m., the 19th hour of the day, on the 19th day of this Celtic cult's calendar. She was stolen from the maternity ward by Jenny and Dean. Heh, Jenny Dean, spooky sausages, that's what's for breakfast. Anyway, so as the search continued for Allison, her birth parents were killed in a freak auto accident. Now, she's needed so that they can transfer the mind of the creepy grandma into a new, younger body, and for Allison to essentially die of old age in the old, creepy grandma body. Now, this is a little bit of a slow burn horror, but there's a truly creepy scene in the cemetery when Peter gets surrounded by the cultists, and they plan to toss him into a grave and bury him alive, but all these weirdo dudes with their tuxes, as if they were... like on their way to someplace really special and appropriately creepy.
I like Peter's story to get himself out of trouble.
Yeah, he claims that the cult took the wrong baby, and they were like, "Oi, we don't believe you."
Perfect accent.
Well, it did work for them at least, and he's able to convince them just enough that they screwed up. He finds out from his sexy, spooky chick friend that what the occult's plan is. And so he goes and steals a cross and makes his way to the ceremony thing to save Allison, but he's ultimately unsuccessful. And one of those kind of bummer endings, he's just a little too late. And the cult knows just a little too much about what they're doing, and the scary old granny's brain goes into Allison's body.
And she kills Pete.
She does. And so Allison's birthday plays a little less like a horror movie and maybe a little bit more like a drama and thriller. It's not quite what you would think from the movie's poster or box art, really. But it does a thing that was somewhat common in a lot of other films of the same ilk and era. It tries to tries to talk of occult things as if they're really trying to take it seriously. This is one of those kind of post-Exorcist things, I think. This movie could have gone over the top with gore or jump scares or what have you, but it didn't. It played it down and kept it mostly to atmosphere. It's fairly well made. It may not be everyone's cup of tea because it does have a much slower pace than your typical horror film. But Nurse, why not tell everyone where they can find the goodness?
You can find all of Jeff's writings at www.bmovieenema.com. He posts new text articles each and every Friday morning, and you can also find episodes of this show, B-Movie Enema the series, on the website as well as on YouTube. Subscribe to him there to be caught up on all the episodes, as well as see clips from other movies he uses in his articles. You can also follow B-Movie Enema on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for him on those sites. You can also find this show on OtherWorlds TV, and if you have a Roku, add the channel for free, and check out all the obscure movies on that channel, as well as the other hosts that play there on the weekends.
Thank you, Nurse. Well, I think it's time to pack up the party and head on out of here. Allison's 19, she's got her gifts and her cake, and I think we should probably leave. So until next time,
What's going on? Are you okay?
I've been referring to a coloring book of a TV show called Grey's Anatomy to look up anatomy things when I've been seeing patients, haven't I?
Yeah, you have.
Huh. We're probably boned.